Alright, it's that time of the year again, what we call hard rubbish, where people chuck out their rubbish, put it on the streets, and you never know, there might be some stuff useful for electronics and radio. Here's my pickings this year from the street. Start with the biggest first. Looks like it's about 8 by 8 centimeters and fairly long. This could be your front panel, that your rear panel, and this the sliding top to get access to the insides. Still need to find some solutions to the ends, maybe piece of plastic or circuit board material, and then you'd have a nice enclosure for that homebrew transmitter or receiver. Still with boxes, we've got this. I think it's some sort of outdoor thing, might have been for an internet connection, and even nice enough to leave the screws. It's been raining, so we'll just have to beat all the water out of it. What's this? It's got a wire hanging off it, even a plug, and it pulls out. Yep. It's a selfie stick, in pretty good condition as well. Or you could even use it as an antenna, this being more than a quarter wavelength on 2 meters. This is super light, absolutely nothing in it. It looks like a toy walkie-talkie. Well, maybe you could build a little transmitter into it, an FM bug, something like that, but looking at it, looks like that it's all sealed, so unless you run a knife along the edge, you won't be able to get this open. Down here, what is this piece of medical equipment? Systolic, diastolic. I think it might be for blood pressure. Oh, inflation. Okay. Yep, digital blood pressure monitor. 2-minute teardown. If you've never seen the innards of a blood pressure monitor before, this is it. What is this? Well, I presume looks like a solenoid, but maybe it's some sort of pressure measuring device. There's only 2 wires coming off it. Circuit board. What's this? Looks like a piezo transducer. Like one of those things you get in smoke alarms, and a big sized LCD display, and there's the power socket floating in the breeze. Feels a bit loose, looks like it's only hung in there by the wires. What is this? There's something quite big underneath. Not sure if it's some sort of motor or pump. Maybe it's the thing that inflates the rubber hose bulb thing. And having a closer look, that U and M, I reckon it's a pump. There's like a T-junction there, and I don't know, I think it must be a solenoid that cuts the pressure off, maybe, when you've done. Chopping board. Never leave them behind, always handy for antenna insulators and the like. Maybe even separators in homemade open wire feed line. This is a bit of a retro pile. We have an old car radio, AM only, from Kmart. Here's your antenna connection. There's 3 wires coming off. One is red, one is black, one is blue. Oddly, it's the blue one that's got the fuse holder. So I'm guessing one of them's positive, one of them's negative, and one of them's the speaker that you also connect the other side of to the negative. So yeah, car radio could be handy. It's a RF shielded receiver type thing that could be useful for a tunable IF, for some sort of shortwave converter. Talking about crude, this looks like something out of the Stone Age. Well, not quite, I'd say 1950s, 1960s. It is a TV tuner. Yep, there was a whole stack of stuff, including these circuit boards. Maybe it was a TV technician. There's another tuner here. Again, it's valve. And there's some cogs there. That would have been for the fine tuning. So yeah, not every year you get stuff like this, but this year delivered the goods. Cordless phones, this one with some arrows, repeat, skip. Looks like it's got an answering machine built in as well. So no tapes, all digital, so you might have yourself a digital voice recorder. This, it's super light and looks like there's a battery holder, AA batteries, a few buttons, looks like a remote control. Another 2-minute teardown. Oh, before we look inside it, at the front is this LED, so I'm guessing it's a infrared remote control, not RF. Quite well made. It's not going to be very much, just the LED. Oh, there might be an IC or two. That's about it. Okay, here's the board. The IC BA5104. It's got 1045 R01A. And there's a little 455 kilohertz ceramic resonator. That could be handy if you are building a BFO. If you've got a receiver with an intermediate frequency of 455 kilohertz. And the rest are just push button switches and the LED right there. What is this? A square box, a battery holder, on-off switch, and some holes. What is it? Well, the screws are deeply recessed, so we might leave this for later, or maybe not at all. Battery. 22.2 volt, 2200 milliamp hour. 48.84 watt hour. Oh well, if you had 11.1 volt, then I wonder if you could split this into two. 11.1 volt would power NFT817. Trickiest thing is opening these things. Trying a bit of leverage with a screwdriver, but so far nothing's giving. Alright, we're in with a little bit of damage to the covers. Circuit board there, so there's the regulator charger thing. And as for the batteries, looks like it is 18650s, 6 of them. Right, here we have innards. Looks like it's a early model, or at least early transistorized model, colour TV. There's even a colour burst crystal here, 4.433 megahertz, which is the frequency we use in Australia. There's a few ICs as well. Yeah, he must have been a TV tech. Here's some antenna connections. Main use here is the binding posts, ideal for antenna couplers where you're feeding balanced open wire line. So yeah, always keep things like this. I don't think this is much good. The resistors will probably have gone high, but the tag strip, you never know. Loose printed circuit board. What is the IC? TAA300. Not sure what that is. Maybe it's an audio amplifier. Certainly looks like it, with the electrolytic capacitors there and the trim pot. And yep, there's a little speaker connection there. You can see that on the board. So yeah, this is almost certainly an audio amplifier. This handsome box looked too good to leave behind. And so there's some padding. Oh, that is obviously a microphone, but sadly the microphone wasn't there. Still, for a portable station, if you're travelling, then maybe this box would be just the thing to keep your transceiver and batteries. A little box, sound PC DVD. It's very light. All it is an audio switch box. Some sort of control circuitry, relay, transformer. There is a crystal. What frequency is it? Let's angle it to the light. Can you read it? I think it's 4.000. I recognise the value because it's one I commonly use. 4.7 microhenry, yellow, violet, gold. 4.7 microhenry in parallel with 100 picofarad capacitor, resonates on 7 MHz, so ideal for a receiver. That looks like a piezo transducer for an alarm. And look like some relays on the end. Now on that same pile that we saw those TV tuners, we have a bag of tubes or valves. That, not sure if you can see, is a 6Y9. This is a 6GV8. I know this one very well because it's a triode pentode, and I used this one to build my first transmitter. The triode part was a crystal oscillator, the pentode an RF amplifier. So you might get 4 or 5 watts if you're lucky out of this. This is a 6DX8. Not sure what that is, probably something from TV. 6X9. Now this one was even in a bag, and it is a turret tuner. Well, there's the channels. You can date this from the channel numbers on it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5A. Channel O and 5A were added, I think, in the early 60s. About these, they're amazing pieces of engineering, and some of our TV channels that we used back then, like channel O was very close to 6 meters and channel 5A was very close to 2 meters, so you would have been able to use this as a converter potentially. Going a bit more modern, a wireless LAN PCI adapter. Big circuit board. Well, an attempt at early surface mount components. See those resistors there? I'd say 80s, maybe even early 90s. Anyway, this is obviously some sort of tuner, probably a stereo tuner. Maybe it would have been one of those all-in-ones. Maybe there was a turntable or cassette deck attached. But this, you can just see in the middle of the screen, is the heatsink from the audio amp. So if you work back, there's some other ICs and a tuning capacitor. And there's the dial drum. So there would have been a string dial on this. But yeah, definitely worth keeping for the tuning capacitor alone. Although receivers and transceivers now have DDSs for antenna couplers, there's really no substitute for a proper variable capacitor, although one like this you'd only use for low power. Anyway, have a look at my website VK3YE.com for information on small antenna couplers that would use one of these variable capacitors. Here's another one. Looks a bit crusty, but definitely worth picking up, because have a look at this magnificent thing. We have a 3-gang variable capacitor with an internal vernier dial drive. And the gangs look identical. So this would have been some form of multi-band receiver. Looking at all those coils, got no idea what it is, but I'm guessing, not even sure if it's got FM, but AM and maybe a few shortwave bands. I'd say late 1970s. What's on the other side? Is there any clue? No, a few components as afterthought. Oh, here there's a ferrite and there's some 300 ohm ribbon going to the antenna. So possibly some form of tuner. What does it say there? I saw some writing. EAMG394V-1. Don't know what that is, but if you do know, then let me know. Yeah, another computer, modem thing, whatever. A few crystals. You may be able to use these as the broadband transformer elements in direct conversion receivers or balance modulators. And if you could, then you could save a bit of winding and messing around with toroids. We have here a Panasonic clock radio. It's got 2 speakers, not sure if it's stereo or not, but it does have an analog dial, which means that it will just have a tuning capacitor like the one that I described before, so it could be useful. Now this is a curious thing. A TV tuner, I'd say probably 1970s, because it's still the turret type tuner. They moved to push button things in, say, the 80s, but it is quite a bit smaller than the ones that we had before. But the unusual thing about it is that there's some variboard there, not many parts on it, and some binding posts. They are very useful. Now I'm not sure why, but if we look at what have we got here, we've got a potentiometer and a knob. I'm guessing that these binding posts are for some sort of antenna. There's a switch there as well. I think someone has tried to make this up as a converter, converting it down to a tunable IF. But yeah, evidence of a homebrew project. Not sure if it ever saw it to fruition. Now this is pretty crusty. I wouldn't even bother applying power to it. Bits missing. Variable capacitor there. It's obviously some sort of radio, possibly radio cassette or just a radio in itself. Oh, there's sliding controls. Probably for the volume, maybe for the balance. Anyway, good thing about it is this long ferrite rod. Actually, there's several coils on it. I reckon this radio would have been an AM shortwave radio. Yeah, for the different coils. Anyway, the ferrite rod is good. It can be useful for antenna balance and bits and pieces. Definitely worth keeping for that. This is a bit of a mystery box. Got no idea what it is. There's a printed circuit board there. Looks like it would have slid into some sort of rack cabinet. Let's have a look. Well, that was a disappointment. Nothing. Not sure what this is. Some LEDs. There's a rotary encoder and some LEDs going around it. Lots and lots of electrolytic capacitors. And there is a crystal for 8 megahertz. So, some little audio accessory, got no idea. There is, however, a voltage regulator, a 7809. And we know this was done by Jason, May 19, 2004. Still on the switchbox theme. Just a few switches, seems to be very little inside, and lots of sockets. Oh, it's labelled projector. So some sort of audio visual thing. We'll have a look inside anyway. Here we are. Looks really nice, spotlessly clean. Anyway, I'm not going to use it. Enjoy these videos? Want to start in amateur radio? Well, check out my books, Ham Radio Get Started for USA readers and the Australian Ham Radio Handbook for those in Australia. For more information, visit my website VK3YE.com or search their titles on Amazon.